Hi, and welcome to the Historic Nerd. Today we're going to talk about a forgotten gem released in the early 2000s called Freedom Fighters. In 1945, the Soviet Union dropped an atomic bomb on Berlin, effectively ending the Second World War, and also establishing them as the world's only superpower. The United States at this point became politically isolated because the Soviet Union went down the path that the United States had gone in reality, and began to selectively isolate them politically and militarily. The game intros sometime in 2002, years after the Soviets have successfully dominated most of the planet. Like many characters in action films, our character Chris Stone is no different. He blatantly refuses to accept facts, even when they're painfully obvious, or at times even in front of him.
Besides, I don't follow all that conspiracy crap like you do. What do you mean, conspiracy crap? Doesn't the Soviet invasion of South America bother you? You need a reality check, bro. You know what? Next thing you know, you'll be waking up under a Russian flag, and you won't think it's conspiracy crap then.
I kid you not. 28 seconds later, after this conversation, this happens.
There is one here! Freeze! Don't move! Remain calm, citizen!
Wouldn't you think in order for Russian troops to be kicking down doors, people would have noticed, or they would have heard gunshots on their way to doing this plumbing job? But no, I think it's because the entire city of New York is like Chris Stone, painfully oblivious to everything in this universe.
Oh, hey, stay cool, man. I'm just the plumber.
Where is your girlfriend, citizen?
And in this universe, even Russian commanders lack the ability to make astute observations.
Girlfriend? Hey, she's not my...
The Soviet commander makes direct house calls, apparently. He's the main commanding general of the entire invasion of the East Coast. Yet, he is able to take time away from his busy schedule to personally go after an individual named Isabella Angelina. I guess he's just really bad at delegating. The Soviets mistakenly take Chris and his brother for being associates of Isabella Angelina, a prominent figure in the American anti-Red movement. What separates me from Chris in this situation would be the warm stream of urine running down my leg. You begin gameplay with the opportunity to punch a man to death with a wrench, but then you meet up with the mysterious Mr. Jones as you try to pursue your brother and rescue him from the Soviets. The game from this point on gives you an immediate goal of rescuing your brother and freeing Isabella Angelina from Soviet captivity. Shortly after the street, you escape to the sewers where you establish your base of operations.
Welcome, New York, to a better future.
From your sewer stronghold, much in a similar fashion to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you begin to launch attacks on the Soviets. You quickly establish yourself as a competent freedom fighter, and you quickly liberate Isabella Angelina and rescue your brother from the Soviets. From this point on, you become known to the Soviets. They actually give you the name the Freedom Phantom.
The group was led by a shadowy figure as yet unidentified, but believed to be a male Caucasian in his early 30s.
The game actually allows you to have a squad dynamic whereby committing heroic actions gives you charisma points which allow you to accumulate and gather more supporters. In a similar fashion to the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan, Chris becomes an effective warlord and gathers his own personal army to push the Soviets out of New York. As the conflict continues, your brother is captured for a second time by the Soviets, and this time he is put on trial and forced to make a public declaration against you.
We have breaking news in the war against the rebels. Earlier tonight, a rebel stronghold was successfully captured by our troops.
Brother and I, we were just bored, and we sort of drifted into crime at a young age due to a lack of direction or ideals and playing video games all night. Violent ones.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, Chris, but your brother is dead. Shortly after he appeared on television, he was taken to Governor's Island. We understand that he was executed personally by General Tatarin. It is said that he died like a man, without a flinch or tear. I know it is painful, but you can be proud of him.
After your brother's murder, you launch an impromptu attack on Governor's Island, attempting to assassinate General Tatarin. The plan goes off without a hitch. You successfully get to a peak above his office, and you take several pot shots putting Tatarin out of his misery, and taking revenge for your brother. but that also has unforeseen consequences.
Remember me, Chris? Yes, I know your name. Perhaps this is more familiar?
Hello, Christopher.
As it turns out, Mr. Jones, the man who's been helping the resistance, is actually the KGB's head of security for the invasion of New York and the occupation forces. So remember what I said about General Tatarin being terrible at delegating jobs to people? This would be the ideal example of that.
You see, I've resumed my original profession. You never questioned where all that juicy information was coming from.
General Tatarin's lack of delegating skills has actually killed him. The fact that he would appoint his head of internal security as his second command is the most foolish thing you can do. Someone who knows exactly when and where you're going to be, you don't want to have in that position, especially in a bureaucratic nightmare like the Soviet system. It's a sure way to get yourself killed. Or at the very least lose a lot of stuff. Like, if I was to give my dog keys to a crate of doggy treats, I am certain she would betray me. After Mr. Jones's betrayal, you actually have to fight your way out of your sewer compound. The entire time you actually don't know if any of your crew have survived, but luckily after fighting your way through an army of Soviets, you actually make it to two of your associates who've survived the attack.
This is Tatiana Kempinski at SAFN Studios in New York. The Soviet armed forces have tonight declared a total victory over the underground rebellion.
After the first base is overrun, you're taken to a secondary facility that you've established. And luckily from here you can start attacking the Soviets again and continuing your rebellion. After regaining your composure at your new base of operations, you decide to do something drastic. The only way to make a truly lasting impact on the occupation is to attack their main headquarters for propaganda production, the Soviet News Agency. After an extremely hard-fought battle to take the building, Chris Stone and his followers make a broadcast to appeal to the other freedom fighters in the city.
Stone, the so-called Freedom Phantom. I stand before you today a free man, and I vow to die a free man. Like you, my world was shattered 8 long months ago. I watched as my family and friends were tortured, captured, and killed. I have nothing left of my former life, except the hope for a better future.
Chris's appeal goes very well. The entire city rises up to help him in his attempt to push the Soviets out. In an action similar to the Kronstadt Rebellion of the Russian Revolution, the American forces actually assault over the ice towards Governor's Island in an attempt to capture it. During the Kronstadt Rebellion, however, the Red Army was the one assaulting across the ice at the fortified naval base in Petrograd Harbor. Although the attack looks cinematic, it is a colossal failure, at least initially. The forces are scattered rather quickly by the Soviets' attempt at bombing the ice. But Chris successfully turns it, however, and actually pushes inland to capture the main fortress on the island. The last couple of missions are rather symbolic. In a way, they resemble the Kronstadt Rebellion because the Russian army was retaking Petrograd from the sailors that were rebelling. This one, the Americans are retaking Governor's Island for themselves. And that's the end of Freedom Fighters. Although it's never quite closed, it's pretty much left open for a potential sequel, because Mr. Jones has never quite dealt with, the Soviets aren't necessarily defeated at home, they're just defeated in America, so it's left entirely open. Although IO Studios was more successful with its Hitman franchise than it was with this one, so it decided to follow that course. Thanks for watching the rest of the episode. This portion is a historic rant, which is where I try and consider the historical events that would have had to have happened in order for the storyline for Freedom Fighters to exist. From what I decided is that so many factors would have to happen in order for the storyline to be proper and correct that it's historically almost impossible. From what I figured out, in order for the United States and the Soviet Union to both go through these same phases where the Soviet Union invades the United States, you'd have to have Stalin dying during the revolution, and Trotsky taking over because he was a more competent commander. So thus there wouldn't be any purges in the Soviet Union limiting the strength of the military. Also, if Stalin died, that would not ever have put into place the concept of the revolution in one country, Trotsky would have continued the revolution and tried to spread it to other nations, thus causing more problems, making World War II more inevitable for the Soviet entry. The United States, in order for them to be completely inept and not necessarily a strong world power, a number of factors would have taken place. The Spanish-American War would not have happened. It would not have to have happened, basically. So therefore, the United States wouldn't have the Philippines, and there wouldn't be an open conflict between Japan and the United States over that territory. Also, World War I would have to have ended worse for the United States, causing a more extreme level of isolation. FDR would have had to have died because he was a very strong advocate for helping the British. Also, America would never have entered World War II in order for this storyline to happen. So, yeah, that's the number of events I had to rant on in order to figure out how this is possible, and from what I've discovered, it's not. No. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. You have a great day.